The rubble still smoked in patches. 3 weeks since the war ended, and Musutafu's outer districts looked like someone had crumpled a city block and forgotten to smooth it back out. Concrete slabs leaned against each other at wrong angles. Rebar jutted from cracked foundations like broken ribs. Civilians picked through the ruins, some searching for belongings, others just scavenging what they could before the next collapse. A woman dragged a scorched suitcase across shattered pavement. 2 men argued over a dented refrigerator. Almost nobody wore hero merch anymore. The few pro-heroes patrolling kept their distance eyes scanning rooftops more than crowds. A boy stood in the middle of it all. He looked maybe 14. Black hair, plain features, the kind of face that disappeared in yearbook photos. School uniform rumpled, but intact. No visible injuries, just standing there while people flowed around him like water past a stone. He blinked slowly, turned his head left, then right. His hands hung loose at his sides. Someone screamed. The boy's head snapped toward the sound. A scaffold was giving way. Metal groaned. The frame tilted, shedding boards and tools in a deadly arc toward a cluster of civilians, too exhausted to run fast enough. The debris stopped, not slowed, not caught. Stopped suspended 3 meters above the ground, as if the world had paused mid-breath. A shopping cart hung sideways. A cement bag floated. Wooden planks formed a frozen fan. The boy had one hand raised. His expression hadn't changed. Still that same blank confusion, like he'd woken up in the wrong room and couldn't find the light switch. He pulled the hand back slowly. The debris drifted aside, setting down with surprising gentleness on empty pavement. The civilians scrambled away. 1 woman fell. The boy took a step toward her. 3 people moved to block him. Not attacking, just bodies between him and the injured woman, hands up in warning. The boy stopped, lowered his hand completely. His shoulders hunched slightly. Sirens approached. Red and blue lights painted the ruins. 2 pros arrived, first quirks already active. One had what looked like hardened skin. The other sprouted extra limbs. They established a perimeter with practiced efficiency eyes locked on the kid. "Stay where you are," the multi-armed hero called out. "Hands visible. Don't make any sudden moves." The boy complied. Didn't speak. Just stood there with his hands slightly raised, that same lost expression on his face. More heroes arrived. Then the UA vehicle, matte black with reinforced plating. The door opened. Aizawa stepped out first. He took in the scene with one sweep: frozen civilians, nervous pros. The kid in the center looking like he wanted to sink into the ground. The underground hero's capture weapon stirred at his shoulders. He walked forward, not rushing. Each step deliberate. When he got within 5 meters, he stopped. "Lower your hands," Aizawa said. Flat voice, no threat, no comfort, just instruction. "Look at me. Breathe slowly." The boy obeyed. His hands came down. His breathing evened out, though his fingers trembled. "Good. I'm going to check something. Don't panic." Aizawa's eyes flashed red. His hair rose slightly. Nothing changed. The boy still stood there. No visible shift in posture or power. Erasure should have cut any active quirk. Aizawa's eyes returned to normal. Not a standard activation pathway, he thought. Either engineered or something outside the registry. He glanced at the nearest pro, gave a subtle shake of his head. The pro's face tightened. "What's your name?" Aizawa asked. "Age?" 14. Silence. The boy looked at the ground. "Guardian's name." More silence. "School registration?" The boy shook his head slowly. "Last thing you remember," Aizawa said. "Street name? Anything." "I was walking home." Mob's voice got quieter. "I don't know the street. It's not... This isn't..." He trailed off. His hands clenched into fists, then relaxed. "I don't understand how I got here." Aizawa studied him. "No ID. No family contact. No explanation for the telekinesis that shouldn't exist without a registered quirk. The kid looked genuinely confused, not evasive. That made it worse somehow. "Come with us," Aizawa said. "We'll figure it out." They transported him to UA in the armored vehicle. Mob sat between two pros' hands folded in his lap. He kept looking out the window as the devastated cityscape rolled past. His reflection in the glass showed nothing. No anger, no fear. Just blankness with something heavy underneath. At UA, they took him straight to the medical ward. Standard procedure for unregistered power manifestation. The doctor ran tests, blood work, quirk factor analysis, genetic markers. Everything came back inconclusive. Quirk factor analysis returned no match, the doctor told Nezu quietly. Signals either corrupted by trauma engineered or operating outside known parameters. But we all saw what he did. Telekinesis definitely. Strong enough to catch falling infrastructure. Precise enough not to hurt anyone. Nezu sat in his oversized chair, paws steepled. The principal's beady eyes reflected screens showing footage from the incident site. Mob catching debris. Mob backing away from frightened civilians. Mob standing alone in the ruins, like he'd been dropped there. 3 possibilities, Nezu said. 1, he's a victim of human trafficking or illegal experimentation quirk artificially induced or mutated beyond standard parameters. 2, he's connected to the missing persons reports from the chaos, suffers from trauma-induced amnesia. 3, his quirk is a rare mutation. Our current tests can't classify, and the stress of the war triggered late manifestation. Which do you believe Sam us? Aizawa stood by the window, arms crossed. All 3 are plausible. None are provable with current evidence. Nezu pulled up another screen. What concerns me is this. The footage showed civilians backing away from mob. The fear in their eyes. The way they'd rather risk falling debris than let him approach. Society is fracturing, Nezu continued. Faith in heroes is at historic lows. People are terrified of uncontrolled power. If word gets out about a child with abilities we can't explain or suppress, it becomes ammunition for those who want stricter quirk regulations. Or worse, vigilante action. So we keep him here, Aizawa said. Protective custody, Nezu agreed. We verify his identity, locate any family, and ensure his safety while we investigate. The alternative is leaving him in a system that may not protect him from those who fear what he represents. Aizawa looked at the screen. Mob sat in the medical bay, shoulders hunched, making himself as small as possible. A kid who'd just saved lives and been treated like a threat. Assign him near the Class A dormitory, Aizawa said. Proximity to students his age might help stabilize him. And they're used to complicated situations. Approved. But establish clear protocols. No unsupervised quirk use, mandatory check-ins. He needs to understand this is for his protection as much as everyone else's. That night, Mob was given a room in a small building adjacent to the main dormitory. Plain but functional. Bed, desk, bathroom. A window that showed the UA grounds peaceful and orderly. Nothing like the ruins he'd appeared in. He sat on the bed. Didn't unpack the basic supplies they'd provided. Just sat there, hands in his lap, staring at nothing. A knock at the door. Aizawa entered without waiting for response. Rules, the teacher said. When you feel overwhelmed, signal. Raise your hand. Tap twice on the nearest surface. Don't try to handle it alone. No using your power around crowds unless there's immediate danger. If you need space, take it. Tell someone. Don't just disappear. Mob nodded. You scared people today, Aizawa continued. That's going to happen again. Power like yours people will be frightened. But you made the right choice backing off. Remember that when it gets harder. I didn't mean to scare anyone. I know. Doesn't change that you did. Intention and impact aren't the same thing. Aizawa moved toward the door, then paused. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start figuring out where you came from. After Aizawa left, Mob finally lay down. Sleep didn't come. He stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment the scaffold fell. The way his power moved without thought. The way people looked at him after. He'd felt this before. Different faces, same fear. Across the city, in a place without windows or natural light. Someone watched the same footage Nezu had reviewed. Not the official reports. The leaked clip already circulating on encrypted forums. Grainy phone camera video showing the debris stop mid-fall. Showing the kid with his hand raised. The figure in the chair leaned forward. Screens reflected off a face hidden in shadow. Interesting, All for One said. Very interesting indeed. He pulled up another window. Medical records partial. UA's intake notes intercepted. Everything they knew about the boy, which wasn't much. No match on quirk factor. Unregistered. Alone. A power that doesn't follow the rules, he murmured. In a society built on rules. How unstable. He pressed a key. The message went out encrypted, bouncing through servers. By the time it reached its destination, the source would be untraceable. She deleted the message. Checked her rifle. The war had scattered so many pieces. This was just another one waiting to be picked up. In another part of the city, Dabi caught a news fragment. Brief mention of an incident. Unregistered power. UA custody. He filed it away, expression unreadable behind burn scars. Toga saw the clip too, just a glimpse on someone's phone screen. A boy stopping debris, people backing away from him. She smiled slightly before moving on. Mob didn't know any of this. Didn't know he'd been seen. Didn't know pieces were moving. He just lay in his room at UA in this strange city, trying to understand how he'd gotten here, trying to figure out what came next. Outside his window, UA's walls stood strong. Inside them, hundreds of students slept, believing those walls kept them safe. Tomorrow, some of them would meet the boy who appeared out of nowhere. The boy whose power didn't fit their framework. The boy who saved people and scared them in the same breath. But tonight, Mob just stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about falling scaffolds and frightened faces. Tried not to think about the feeling building inside him, slow and inevitable as rising water. And I honestly think that's hilarious because he has no idea what he's looking at. He thinks Mob is another unstable weapon. But Mob straight up does not play by their rules at all. Okay. The whole thing is just Mob being way too strong for a world that's obsessed with lists and licenses. Seeing Nezu trying to figure out if Mob is an experiment or a mutant is so funny because they just can't accept that someone can be built different without science or some evil plan behind it. And I bet the villains are going to have a terrible time trying to manipulate him. Mob doesn't want power control or chaos. He just wants to go home, eat something, and sleep. Trying to play mind games with a guy like that is going to end so badly for them. Kageyama. The boy's voice came out quiet. Shigeo Kageyama. People call me Mob. Where do you live? Lady Nagant received it on a disposable phone. She read the brief once, then again. A job. A target. Not elimination. Acquisition. Test first, then extract if viable. Tomorrow things would start to move. The feeling that said he'd been through this before. And it never ended well. Okay, so honestly looking at chapter 1 is super fun, guys. Like Mob is just standing there, looking like an NPC who spawned into the wrong game and everyone else is losing their shit over falling debris that he stopped without even trying. He didn't pose, didn't flex, nothing. Stuff just stopped. And the best part is Aizawa staring at him with those red eyes trying to erase a quirk that doesn't even exist. I bet that was awkward as hell. Imagine using your whole power and literally nothing happens. And I think this really shows how paranoid hero society is after the war. Instead of saying, "Yo, thanks for saving those people," they instantly surround him like he's a threat. Classic hero move, haha. It's just overthink everything and miss the obvious part. That this is just a confused kid in a school uniform who looks like he wants to go home. Meanwhile, okay guys, All for One is sitting in his dark gamer chair watching some leaked video like, "Oh nice, a new broken kid I can mess with." Morning came through curtains Mob hadn't closed. He'd watched the sky change from black to gray to pale blue, tracking each shift like it might tell him something useful. It didn't. Someone knocked. Not Aizawa's authoritative rap. This was lighter, almost apologetic. Mob sat up, smoothing his rumpled uniform. He hadn't changed. Hadn't thought to ask for other clothes. Kageyama, a voice through the door, young, nervous. Aizawa-sensei sent me. I'm supposed to show you around, if that's okay. Mob opened the door. Green hair, freckles, a smile that looked practiced, but genuine. The boy wore casual clothes, not a uniform. Weekend, Mob realized. He'd lost track of days. I'm Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. But everyone calls me Deku. The boy extended his hand, then seemed to second-guess the gesture, letting it fall. Sorry. You probably want breakfast first? Are you hungry? Mob hadn't considered it. His body felt distant, like borrowed equipment he wasn't sure how to operate. I don't know. That's okay. We'll go to the common area anyway. Everyone's there. Well, not everyone. Todoroki usually shows up late and Bakugo. Deku caught himself. Sorry, too much information. Let's just go. They walked across the courtyard. Early sun painted everything gold, and for a moment the campus looked untouched. Then Mob noticed the reinforced walls, the security checkpoints, the way certain buildings had fresh concrete where old damage had been patched. It's different now, Deku murmured, after everything. But we're rebuilding. Trying to, anyway. The common room hummed with activity. A dozen students occupied various corners, some eating, some studying, some just existing in proximity to each other. Conversation died when Mob entered. Not hostile silence, just sudden awareness like a bird spotting movement. A girl with brown hair glanced up from the kitchen counter, her expression shifting through several emotions quickly before settling on friendly. Oh, you're the new guy? She wiped her hands on a towel, approaching with ease that seemed deliberate. Uraraka. Want some rice? I made way too much. Again. Mob nodded because it seemed expected. Great. She loaded a bowl, added pickles and miso soup, set it on the table with practiced efficiency. Sit anywhere. Well, not Bakugo's spot. He gets weird about that. But anywhere else. Deku guided Mob to a seat. Other students drifted closer, curiosity winning over caution. A tall boy with glasses approached with military precision. Tenya Ida, Class 1, a representative. He bowed slightly. Aizawa-sensei briefed us on basic protocols. If you experience distress, please signal. Raised hand, 2 taps, or verbal indication. We're trained to respond to emergency situations. Ida, you're doing it again, Uraraka called out. Doing what? Talking like a manual. She turned to Mob. He means if you need space, just say so, or leave, or whatever helps. No judgment. Mob ate slowly. The rice tasted like nothing but the act of eating gave him something to focus on besides the weight of attention. Gradually, conversation resumed around him. Not forced normal, just the careful rhythm of people who'd learned to function around danger. So what's your quirk? A pink-skinned girl leaned over from the couch. Aizawa said telekinesis, but like how strong? Can you lift people? Buildings, what's the upper limit? Mina Deku started. What I'm curious, maybe later. Uraraka cut in smoothly. Let him eat first. An explosion of noise from the entrance made Mob flinch, his bowl rattling against the table. Everyone turned. Bakugo stood in the doorway, hair wet from a shower tank top and sweatpants suggesting he'd been training. His eyes locked on Mob immediately. So this is the guy. He walked over each step loud against tile. The one who showed up out of nowhere. No records, no registration, no explanation. Bakugo, Deku warned. Shut it, Deku. Bakugo leaned against the table, arms crossed. I'm not starting anything. Just observing. His red eyes studied Mob with uncomfortable intensity. You scared people yesterday. Saved them, yeah, but scared them more. You plan to do that here? Mob's hands tightened around the bowl. No. No what? No, you won't save people, or no, you won't scare them. I don't want to scare anyone. Want doesn't matter. Control does. Bakugo straightened. If you lose it in here, if you hurt someone because you couldn't keep a lid on your power, that's on you. Not circumstance. Not surprise. You. That's enough, Ida interjected. No, it's not. Bakugo's tone stayed level, hard, but not cruel. Everyone here knows what their quirk can do. We train. We push limits in safe environments. We don't wait until we're panicking to figure out how strong we are. He addressed Mob directly. So figure it out before someone gets hurt. He left without waiting for response. The room exhaled collectively. Don't mind him, Moina offered. He's always like that. He has a point, though. A boy with red and white hair emerged from the hallway. Todoroki, Mob remembered. The late riser. Power without understanding is dangerous. To everyone, including yourself. But that's why he's here, Uraraka countered. To figure things out, in a safe place, right? She watched Mob expectantly, but without pressure, as if she actually wanted his answer, rather than assuming it. I don't know how I got here. Mob spoke softly. I don't know why my power works the way it does. I just know. He stopped. Starting over felt harder than staying silent. I know what happens when I can't control it, and I don't want that to happen again. Then we'll help. With surprising certainty, Deku continued, That's what we do. Help each other stay stable, stay safe, even if we don't always know what we're doing, Uraraka added with a slight smile. Trial and error. Mostly error at first. Speak for yourself, Mina replied, then grinned. Okay, yeah, lots of error. Todoroki moved to sit across from Mob, settling into the chair without speaking. Just quiet presence that somehow made the room feel less crowded. Aizawa-sensei mentioned panic protocols, Ida began. Basic stress responses. We should review those. Not now, he added quickly, but soon. Preparedness reduces casualties. You really need to work on your pep talks, Uraraka told him. The morning dissolved into routine as students came and went. Someone turned on music and Mina tried teaching a dance move that nobody could follow. Deku pulled out homework, muttering about an essay due Monday, while Uraraka argued with someone about proper cooking technique. Mob stayed at the table observing. The normalcy felt foreign, like clothes that didn't quite fit. These people lived in a fortress, but acted like it was home. They discussed training and homework in the same breath, laughed about inside jokes while news reports played footage of destroyed cities. You don't have to stay here, Todoroki remarked suddenly. In the common room. If it's too much. I'm okay. You look tired. Mob didn't have an answer for that. Tired implied he'd been doing something. He'd just been existing. When I first came here, Todoroki continued, keeping his tone low enough that others couldn't hear. I hated being around people. Too loud. Too many expectations. Everyone looking at you like you're either a hero or a problem. He paused. Eventually I realized they were just looking, not judging, just seeing. What if what they see is dangerous? Then they help you not be dangerous. Or they stand next to you anyway. Todoroki stood. I'm going to train. You can come if you want, or not, either way. He left before Mob could respond. He's not great at conversation. Uraraka mentioned sliding into the vacated seat. But he means well, we all do. This whole situation is weird, I know. New place, new people, everything uncertain. But weird is kind of our normal now. I keep thinking I'll wake up somewhere else, Mob admitted. Back where I started. Like this is temporary. Maybe it is. Maybe UA figures everything out and you go home. But until then, you're here. And here isn't awful. Could be worse. Could it? Definitely. You could be stuck with just Bakugo. She smiled. Look, I get it. Sort of. Not the appearing out of nowhere part. But the being scared of your own power part. My quirk made me sick for years. Literally sick. Every time I used it too much, I'd throw up. Embarrassing and gross, and I almost quit because of it. But you didn't. No. Because people helped. Gave me strategies. Reminded me that struggling doesn't mean failing. She tapped the table twice, demonstrating. Like the signal thing Ida mentioned, simple, effective, no shame in using it. Mob tried to imagine tapping a table when panic built. Tried to imagine these strangers responding without fear or judgment. The image wouldn't solidify. You don't believe me, Uraraka observed. I don't believe it will work. Fair enough. Proof comes later. For now, just remember if things get bad, we're here. Not running, not hiding. Here. The afternoon passed in fragments. Someone suggested a movie. Someone else vetoed the choice, and compromise happened through friendly arguing. Mob declined to participate, but stayed in the room, learning their dynamics through observation. Bakugo returned, but ignored him. Todoroki appeared periodically checking without obviously checking. Deku kept circling back, offering updates nobody asked for, but somehow needed. Evening brought dinner and organized chaos as multiple people tried cooking simultaneously. Uraraka commandeered the rice cooker, while Mina attempted something experimental with vegetables. Ida supervised from a position of stressed authority. You should help, Deku suggested to Mob. Even if it's just setting the table. Makes you part of things instead of watching things. Mo set the table, counted plates, arranged chopsticks, small tasks that required focus but not decision-making. When everyone sat down, the configuration placed him between Uraraka and Deku. Strategic, probably, but it felt less like containment than inclusion. They ate and talked about weekend plans, complained about upcoming tests. Somebody mentioned a hero ranking update, and the mood shifted slightly. Not toward sadness, just acknowledgement that the world outside continued being complicated. Do you miss it? Mob asked suddenly. Being normal students instead of... He gestured vaguely at the reinforced windows. We were never normal students, Deku replied. Hero course guarantees that. But yeah, sometimes I miss when the biggest problem was passing exams. Now the biggest problem is passing exams while society crumbles, Mina quipped. So basically the same but with extra steps. Perspective in her mom. Uraraka offered. We've still got exams, still got training, still got each other. That counts for something. After dinner, people dispersed. Study groups formed, someone started gaming, and Todoroki vanished toward the training facilities. Mob helped clean drying dishes while Uraraka washed. You did good today, she remarked. I didn't do anything. Exactly, you were here. Didn't run, didn't explode, didn't isolate completely. That's good. The casual praise felt wrong, unearned. But Mob didn't argue. Later, walking back to his room, he encountered Bakugo near the courtyard. The explosive boy leaned against a wall, arms crossed, watching the dark campus. What I said this morning. Bakugo started without preamble, wasn't trying to be a dick. Well, maybe a little. But mostly, he scowled. Look, you're dangerous. You know it. I know it. Everyone knows it. But dangerous doesn't mean bad. Just means you need to get your shit together before circumstances do it for you. I'm trying. Then try harder. Bakugo pushed off the wall. And if you can't try harder alone, ask. Deku will probably cry with happiness if you ask him for help. Uraraka will feed you while helping. Even half and half will show up if needed. He paused at the entrance. Point is, don't sit there drowning when people are offering life vests. Makes you a liability. He disappeared inside. Mob stood in the courtyard, alone. Above, stars fought through light pollution. In the distance, sirens wailed. The world kept spinning, crisis layered on crisis, and here he was. Trapped in borrowed space, surrounded by people who decided to include him before understanding what that meant. He returned to his room. This time, exhaustion won. Sleep pulled him under before doubt could follow. Across the city, Lady Nagant crouched on a rooftop overlooking the transit routes between UA and the residential sectors. Wind tugged at her hair. Below, civilians moved through their evening routines, unaware they'd soon become variables in someone else's equation. She marked 3 positions in her mental map. Adjusted for sightlines and escape vectors. The boy had people now. Connections. All she had to do was make him choose between his safety and theirs. Okay, so honestly, I think this second chapter is wholesome in a way that feels kinda dangerous. Like, well, Mob wakes up and somehow immediately gets adopted by the loudest extroverts alive. And I bet he's sitting there thinking, how the fuck did I get here? One minute he's alone, next minute he's in a dorm full of teenagers who do not know how to chill. Deku is trying so hard to be nice that it's almost stressful, and Mob just looks like he wants to melt into the floor and disappear. Then okay, guys. Uraraka comes in and decides the best fix for trauma is shoving a bowl of rice into his hands. And honestly, I think that's valid because food fixes most shit. Well, then Bakugo walks in fresh from a shower and immediately starts talking shit. And yeah, he's being an asshole. But I honestly kind of get it. He's the only one saying what everyone else is scared to say, which is that being scared doesn't help if Mob accidentally blows up the building. Bakugo knows that in their world, good intentions don't mean shit if a city block gets flattened, so he's basically telling Mob to get his shit together before someone gets hurt. And I think it's funny watching Todoroki try to bond with Mob, because it's just 2 quiet, traumatized dudes standing next to each other, like they're in a contest to see who can say less. The whole dorm vibe is weird, too. Okay, so now it's like a bunch of teenagers pretending everything is normal, while the world is literally burning outside. They're eating joking, trying to relax. And meanwhile, Lady Nagant is camping on a roof like she's in a sniper game, waiting to ruin the whole thing. Honestly, I think the funniest and scariest part is that Class 1A thinks friendship is enough. They're basically putting a fragile, overpowered bomb in their living room and going, yeah, this'll be fine. I bet that's a terrible plan. But, well, that's anime logic, so somehow it'll work. The evacuation zone smelled like dust and rust. Not the sharp tang of fresh destruction, this was older settled. 3 weeks of weather had turned concrete powder into gritty paste that coated everything it touched. Mob followed Class 1A through the perimeter checkpoint. Security waved them in without enthusiasm. Just another group of hero students doing community service trying to rebuild faith the old-fashioned way. One disaster cleanup at a time. Stay close, Deku instructed. We're here to help relocate supplies and clear safe pathways. Nothing complicated. Just making the area functional for residents who want to return. The zone stretched in every direction. Buildings with missing walls, streets buckled from underground damage. A playground buried under rubble, swings twisted into abstract sculptures. People moved through it all, with the exhausted determination of those who'd run out of other options. An elderly woman carried boxes from a half-collapsed apartment. 2 men argued over salvaged furniture. A family picked through what used to be a shop, searching for anything sellable. Everyone wore masks against the dust. Nobody wore hope. Uraraka organized tasks with practiced efficiency. Ida coordinate with the relief station. Todoroki structural assessment on the north block. Bakugo, I know what I'm doing. He cut in, already moving toward a cluster of heavy debris and mob. Uraraka turned to him. Help me sort supplies. Medical in one area, food in another, personal items separate. Simple organizing. That okay? Mob nodded. Simple was good. Simple meant less room for mistakes. They worked in steady rhythm. Uraraka pulled items from donation crates while Mob arranged them on folding tables. Bandages, canned food, blankets that smelled like someone else's closet. Each object represented small mercy in a landscape of need. A woman approached, maybe 40, face lined with more than just age. She studied the tables, then studied Mob. Her expression shifted recognition without familiarity. You're the one from the news, she stated flatly. The telekinesis kid. Mob's hand stilled over a box of rice packets. He's with us, Uraraka interjected smoothly. UA student, here to help. I saw the footage. Debris just stopped. The woman's voice carried no malice, just wariness, like someone identifying a stray dog, useful maybe, but unpredictable. That level of power, unregistered, makes people nervous. It makes me nervous too, Mob admitted quietly. The woman blinked. Whatever response she'd expected, honesty wasn't it. She took a blanket from the table, nodded once, and left. You didn't have to answer her, Uraraka commented, after the woman was out of earshot. She wasn't wrong. Maybe, but you're still here, still helping. That counts. More people came. Some thanked them. Others just took what they needed and moved on. A few stared at Mob with that same wary assessment, weighing utility against risk. Each look added weight Mob couldn't name, but felt accumulating. Across the zone, Bakugo hauled concrete slabs with controlled explosions, clearing pathways with efficiency bordering on aggression. Todoroki reinforced unstable structures with ice supports, buying time for proper repairs later. Ida directed foot traffic, keeping movement orderly despite the chaos underneath. Deku appeared periodically, checking progress and adjusting plans on the fly. Hero work without the glory, just logistics and labor. Sweat equity towards something resembling normal. Mob, Deku called out. We need help over here. A section of wall had collapsed overnight, blocking access to a storage unit families were using as temporary shelter. Too heavy for manual lifting, too unstable for explosives. The kind of problem that required either expensive equipment or creative solutions. Mob approached. 5 people watched him from varying distances, their possessions trapped behind several tons of reinforced concrete. Can you lift it? Deku asked. Just enough for us to shore it up safely. I think so. You're sure no pressure if... I can do it. Mob raised one hand. The concrete groaned dust, sifting from cracks as pressure redistributed. Slowly, almost gently, the section rose. Not dramatically. Not the explosive power from the scaffold incident. Just steady force applied with surgical precision. Todoroki moved immediately, sliding ice supports into the gap. Ida coordinated the evacuation of belongings. Bakugo secured loose debris that might shift. The whole operation took 90 seconds. When Mob lowered his hand, the concrete settled onto Todoroki's ice structure with barely a sound. Stable, safe, temporary, but functional. The 5 residents retrieved their belongings. One man muttered thanks without making eye contact. A woman gathered her children and hurried away faster than necessary. Another just stared, expression unreadable behind his mask. Good work, Deku told Mob. Then louder, addressing the residents. He's part of our team. Anything you need moved, cleared, or stabilized, let us know. It wasn't a request. It was a statement. Deku wasn't asking permission to have Mob there. He was claiming responsibility, putting his name on it. The crowd dispersed slowly, some relieved. others still uncertain, but they dispersed. "They're scared of me," Mob observed. "They're scared of everything." Bakugo corrected dumping debris nearby. War does that. Makes people see threats in anything unfamiliar. He wiped sweat from his forehead. Doesn't mean you stop helping. Just means you deal with it. Even when helping makes it worse. You lifted a wall. People got their stuff. How's that worse? Bakugo didn't wait for an answer, just moved to the next task. Hours passed in increments. Clear this. Move that. Hold this steady while someone else secures it. The work was repetitive, unglamorous, and somehow grounding. Mob found rhythm in it, small applications of power. Each one controlled, each one purposeful. A child's cry cut through the ambient noise. Everyone turned. A boy, maybe 7, stood near a collapsed playground. His arm was trapped under a fallen beam, pinned, but not crushed. An adult tried to lever it free, but the angle was wrong. More pressure would cause more collapse. Mob moved before thinking. The beam lifted. The boy pulled free. The adult scooped him up, checking for injuries, while the child sobbed into his shoulder. "Thank you," the adult breathed. Then, registering who'd helped, his expression complicated. Gratitude mixed with discomfort. Thank you." He carried the boy away quickly, as if proximity might be contagious. Mob lowered the beam carefully. Behind him, Uraraka approached. "You okay?" "He was scared of me, even after I helped." "Yeah." She didn't deny it. People are complicated. They can be grateful and scared at the same time. Doesn't mean you did the wrong thing. It feels wrong. Feelings and facts aren't always friends. Uraraka glanced around the evacuation zone at the slow progress, the suspicious glances, the careful distance people maintained. "Look, this whole situation sucks. The war sucked. The aftermath sucks. People being afraid of power they don't understand sucks. But you know what would suck more? What if you let that fear stop you from helping? If you decided their discomfort mattered more than their safety?" She met his eyes directly. "You saved a kid today. That's not nothing, even if his dad doesn't know how to process it." Mob wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that saving someone shouldn't come with fear attached. But Uraraka had already moved on, directing other students toward remaining tasks. The afternoon wore down into evening. Streetlights flickered on, powered by generators. The relief station distributed dinner prepackaged meals that tasted like cardboard, but filled stomachs. Class 1. A ate together on the edge of the zone, sitting on rubble like it was furniture. 3 blocks cleared. Ida reported, reviewing his tablet. 47 supply drops organized. Structural assessments complete on priority buildings. Efficient work, everyone. "We didn't die," Mina added. "Always a bonus." "Low bar," Bakugo muttered. "But accurate," Todoroki noted. Mob ate quietly, listening to their easy banter. They'd done this before, turned disaster zones into workable spaces, one small victory at a time. It was familiar to them, routine almost. "You did good today," Deku told Mob. "I know it was uncomfortable, people's reactions. But you showed up and helped anyway. That matters. They're still scared, maybe. But they're also safer. Sometimes that's the trade-off." Deku packed away his meal, stretching tired muscles. "Heroes don't always get thanked. Sometimes we just do the work and hope it's enough." "Is it enough?" "Has to be. Otherwise, we'd never start." They packed up as dusk settled. The evacuation zone looked marginally better, clearer pathways, organized supplies, structural hazards marked. Small improvements that might help someone tomorrow. As they walked toward the exit, Mob noticed a figure in the crowd. Just another resident face obscured by a mask and hood. But something about the posture felt wrong. Too still. Too focused. The figure watched Uraraka specifically. Not hostile, just observing like an artist studying a subject. Mob blinked and the figure was gone, lost in the movement of people seeking shelter for the night. "Something wrong?" Uraraka asked, noticing Mob had stopped. "I thought..." "Nothing, just tired." "Fair. Let's get back to UA. Actual food awaits. Well, cafeteria food. Which is debatable as actual food, but better than these ration packs." They left the evacuation zone behind. Security logged them out. The city swallowed them. In familiar noise sirens trafficked the pulse of life, continuing despite everything. On the transport back, Mob stared out the window, watched the damaged cityscape blur past. Thought about the boy's father, grateful and frightened in equal measure. Thought about Uraraka standing between him and suspicious glances. Thought about Deku claiming responsibility without hesitation. "Hey!" Uraraka's voice pulled him back. "You're thinking too loud. How can you tell? You get this look. Like you're trying to solve a math problem that doesn't have an answer." She leaned back in her seat. "For what it's worth, I meant what I said earlier. You helped today. People are safer because you showed up. Don't let their fear erase that. What if next time is worse? What if I can't control? Then we deal with it. Together." She said it simply, like stating a fact. "That's the deal. We don't leave people behind, especially not people who are trying." Bakugo snorted from across the aisle. "Sentimental." "Accurate," Todoroki countered, echoing his earlier comment. "Same thing," Uraraka replied, unbothered. Mob wanted to believe her. Wanted to trust that together meant something real. Not just polite fiction. But trust required proof, and proof required time. Still, today when people feared him, they'd stayed. Deku claimed him. Uraraka defended him. Bakugo, in his own aggressive way, had acknowledged him. Small promises, unspoken but present. Maybe that was enough for now. Back at UA, they dispersed to rooms and showers and blessed solitude. Mob lay on his bed exhausted in a way that felt almost clean. Physical tiredness earned through actual work rather than anxiety. His phone buzzed, the basic device UA had provided. A message from Deku. "Good job today. Rest up. Tomorrow's Sunday, so no obligations. Just hang out if you want." Mob stared at the message. Hang out? Like he was normal. Like today's careful acceptance was the beginning of something sustainable. He typed back, "Okay," one word, but maybe sufficient. Sleep came easier tonight. Not perfect, but easier. Across the city, in the shadow of a damaged building, Toga removed her mask and smiled at nothing in particular. She'd seen enough. The brown-haired girl with the gravity quirk. The way she positioned herself between Mob and the world. The way Mob responded, subtle relaxation, fractional trust. Connection was always exploitable. You just had to know which thread to pull. She disappeared into the night, humming something cheerful and wrong. Okay, so honestly, looking at this chapter, I think it feels like the most awkward field trip ever. Well, you've got Class 1A out here trying to do nice community service, helping people clean up, and everyone is treating Mob like he's a ticking fucking bomb. And I bet that feels awful for him. But at the same time, it's kind of darkly funny. Dude is just trying to help, and everyone's acting like he's about to explode any second. And honestly, I never thought I'd say this, but Bakugo is weirdly the voice of reason here. He's not even screaming. He just straight up tells Mob that people being scared of him is not an excuse to stop working. And I think that's actually the best advice Mob has gotten so far. It's blunt, it's harsh, but it's real. Bakugo knows the world doesn't stop just because you feel bad, and he's basically saying, yeah, this sucks, but you still gotta move. Okay. So I also think Uraraka deserves a fucking medal in this chapter. When that lady starts making things weird and bringing up the news report, Uraraka jumps in like Mob's PR manager. She keeps it chill, keeps it normal, and honestly, She's the only one treating Mob like a regular person instead of a science project or a threat. And guys, the funniest but saddest part is when Mob lifts that whole concrete wall in like 90 seconds with zero effort. He saves the guy's stuff, does everything right, and the dude just stares at him in pure terror. Like Mob just cursed his bloodline instead of helping him. That shit really shows how broken this society is. Well, it also gets creepy real fast because Toga is just lurking in the background, watching all this. And I bet she immediately figures out that the easiest way to break Mob is to hurt the one person who was kind to him. Of course, the villains see friendship and go, yeah, let's use that. That tracks. But okay, guys, the ending is actually really sweet. After all that heavy, depressing shit, Deku just texts Mob asking if he wants to hang out. Like they didn't just spend the whole day lifting rubble in what looks like a war zone. And I think that really sums it up. They're not heroes or symbols at that moment. They're just awkward teenagers trying to be normal, while the world is falling apart around them. The medical wing at 3 a.m. felt like a place outside time. Fluorescent lights hummed their endless note. Hallways stretched empty and sterile. Somewhere a monitor beeped with mechanical patience. Aizawa stood outside the testing room, coffee growing cold in his hand. Through the observation window, Mob sat on an examination table, posture perfect and unnatural. Nezu occupied the chair beside him, speaking in low tones Aizawa couldn't hear through the glass. The door opened. Recovery girl emerged, medical charts tucked under one arm. Vitals are stable, she reported. No signs of stress beyond what you'd expect from a teenager who hasn't been sleeping well. Physically, he's unremarkable. Physically, Aizawa repeated. Everything else. She handed him the charts. That's why you're here. Aizawa entered. Mob's attention shifted immediately, tracking movement with the wariness of prey, trying not to spook predators. We're going to run another test, Aizawa began without preamble. Similar to what we attempted during intake. You remember when I used my quirk? It didn't work, Mob offered quietly. Correct. Tonight we're documenting why. Medical necessity. If we can't understand your power's mechanism, we can't properly ensure safety protocols are adequate. Aizawa positioned himself at optimal distance. I'll activate erasure. You tell me what you feel. Any change, any sensation, anything unusual. Okay. Nezu watched from his chair tablet, recording everything. Not for spectacle, for evidence. For the conversation they'd need to have after. Aizawa's eyes flashed crimson. His hair rose on invisible current. Erasure activated, targeting the boy across from him, with the same certainty it had canceled countless quirks before. Nothing changed. Mob sat there unchanged. No flicker of surprise, no visible disruption. The air around him held the same quality it always did, that subtle pressure suggesting more beneath the surface. Anything, Aizawa prompted. No, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. This is data, not failure. Aizawa maintained erasure for another 30 seconds. Extended contact sometimes revealed delayed effects. But the boy remained constant. A fixed point erasure couldn't touch. He let his quirk drop. The strain eased immediately. Erasure took focus energy, the peculiar exhaustion of sustained concentration, but no result materialized. We're done, Aizawa confirmed. You can return to your room. Mob slid off the examination table, movements careful, like he was trying not to disturb more than necessary. He paused at the door. Does this mean I'm dangerous? The question hung there too large for the small room. It means we need to adjust our approach, Nezu answered diplomatically. The initial hypothesis that your power operates through conventional quirk factor pathways appears incorrect. That's valuable information. But if you can't turn it off, then we work with what we can do, Aizawa cut in. Control comes from you, not from external regulation. That's true for plenty of quirks. Yours just makes it non-negotiable. Mob absorbed this with visible effort, then nodded once and left. After the door closed, silence settled heavy. Well, Nezu began setting down his tablet. That confirms our concern. Aizawa drained his cold coffee. If erasure can't touch him, then the standard suppression methods won't work either. Quirk-canceling equipment, power dampeners, containment protocols, all of it assumes the target operates through quirk factor mechanics, which means society's primary safeguard against uncontrolled power is ineffective. Nezu pulled up multiple screens on his tablet. The implications are considerable. If this information becomes public knowledge, Kageyama becomes not just a curiosity, but a symbol. Proof that the system has gaps. Do we inform the Hero Public Safety Commission and tell them what? That we're harboring a child whose power we can't classify or control. They'd either demand his transfer to a containment facility or recommend more permanent solutions. Nezu's paws moved across the tablet with precise taps. No. For now, this stays internal. Limited access. We protect him by keeping him quiet. That's a strategy with expiration dates, Aizawa noted. Someone always talks. Someone always leaks. Then we minimize damage when it happens. But premature exposure serves no one, least of all Kageyama. They left the medical wing together, walking through corridors designed to feel safe. But safety was always contextual. UA's walls held because people believed they held. Belief was fragile. Morning came with its usual demands. Classes resumed, students trained. Life at UA maintained its careful momentum, pretending normalcy was sustainable. Mob attended breakfast in the common room. The previous days had established patterns. Sit near Uraraka, accept food from whoever was cooking. Participate minimally in conversation. Routine that felt almost stable. Deku arrived with his usual energy-dumping books on the table. Pop quiz in hero history today. I should have studied more. I always say I'll study more, then I don't, then I regret it right before the quiz. That's because you're predictable. Bakugo commented from across the room. Being predictable isn't always bad. Uraraka defended. At least you know what you're getting. Mediocrity. That's what you're getting. And yet somehow Deku usually scores higher than you. That happened once. Their banter washed over mob like background noise, comforting in its consistency. These people had rhythms, inside jokes, established dynamics. He was adjacent to it, but not quite part of it. A satellite orbiting their system. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Check the news. Mob frowned. Before he could process further, Ida burst into the common room, tablet in hand, an expression grim. Has anyone seen this? He pulled up a news site, turning the screen so others could see. The headline read, UA student with uncontrollable power. Leaked reports suggest hero school hiding risk. The article was sparse on details, but heavy on speculation. An unnamed source claimed UA was protecting a student whose quirk couldn't be managed through conventional means. No names, no photos. Just enough information to plant seeds of doubt. This is irresponsible journalism, Ida stated flatly. Publishing speculation without verification endangers everyone involved. Journalism isn't about responsibility anymore, Todoroki observed. It's about clicks. Mob's hands tightened around his phone. The article didn't name him. Didn't need to. Anyone who'd seen the footage from his first day would connect the dots. Boy appears out of nowhere. Telekinesis. Unregistered. Taken into UA custody. Uraraka was reading over Ida's shoulder. Her expression shifted through concern into something harder, protective anger. This is garbage, she declared. Whoever leaked this is trying to cause problems. Probably the same people who want UA to fail entirely. Or someone who genuinely believes the public has a right to know, Deku suggested, though he didn't sound convinced. Bakugo snorted. Right to know. That's just code for right to panic. The common room devolved into debate about journalism transparency, the public's capacity to handle complicated information. Mob stopped listening. The words blurred into noise while his mind focused on one certainty: he'd become a problem. Not through any action, just through existence. He stood, walked to his room, closed the door, sat on the bed and tried to figure out what staying small looked like when the world kept expanding around you. 3 hours later, Aizawa found him there. Saw the news, the teacher stated, not bothering with gentler approaches. Figured you'd be here. I'm making things difficult for everyone. You're existing. That's not a crime. Aizawa leaned against the doorframe. The leak isn't your fault. Security protocols have been compromised since the war. Too many holes, not enough resources to plug them all. But if I wasn't here, you are here. That's the reality we work with. Aizawa's tone allowed no argument. People are going to talk. Some will be afraid, others will demand action. That's what happens when society feels unstable. They look for things to blame. So what do I do? Keep your head down. Follow the protocols we established. Let UA handle the external noise. Aizawa straightened. And don't internalize other people's fear. That's their burden, not yours. After Aizawa left, Mob remained on his bed. The advice made logical sense. But logic didn't erase the feeling that his presence was a weight people shouldn't have to carry. Across the city in a nondescript apartment, someone reviewed the same news article with entirely different intentions. All for One leaned back in his chair, screens arrayed before him like windows into ordered chaos. The leak had gone exactly as planned, enough information to spark concern, not enough to trigger official response. Perfect ambiguity. The boy who can't be erased, he mused aloud. How delightfully unstable. He pulled up additional data. UA's encrypted communications partially decoded. Security camera footage from the evacuation zone showing Mob lifting debris with careful precision. Medical reports incomplete but suggestive. The picture emerged clearly, a power that didn't follow rules. A child society couldn't control. A walking contradiction to the fundamental premise that quirks were manageable, categorizable, safe. A tool for undermining faith in the hero system. All for One continued speaking to the empty room. Better than any weapon. Because he's sympathetic, a victim of circumstance. When he inevitably loses control, and the public will blame the heroes for failing to contain him. He composed a message. Encrypted. Routed through enough proxies that tracing it would take months. The content was brief. Target identified. Objective test response parameters. Acquire if viable, eliminate if not. Priority create spectacle. Time frame flexible. Resources allocated. The message went out into the dark web's hidden channels. Within an hour, it reached its intended recipient. Lady Nagant read the brief 3 times, committing details to memory before deletion. She'd worked with All for One's network before, back when she was officially a hero, unofficially something else. The war had simplified things. No more pretense. Just jobs and payment. This job was straightforward in concept, complex in execution. Test a target's capabilities. Force him into a corner. See what broke, first his control or his conscience. She assembled her equipment methodically. Rifle components, specialized ammunition, surveillance gear. The work was familiar, almost meditative. Violence as craft rather than passion. By evening, her preparations were complete. Tomorrow she'd scout locations, map the routes Class 1A typically traveled, identify the optimal hunting ground. All for One's jobs always had layers. This one's subtext was clear. Make the boy a problem too big for UA to hide. Force them to choose between protecting him and protecting everyone else. Lady Nagant didn't care about the politics. She cared about the shot. Everything else was context. In another part of the city, Dabi watched security camera footage on a stolen tablet. The news about UA's mysterious student had reached villain networks quickly. Speculation ran wild. Some thought it was propaganda. Others saw opportunity. Dabi saw kindling, another crack in the foundation. He commented to no one in particular. The heroes can't even control their own students. How long before the public realizes the whole structure is built on lies? He didn't need to directly engage with the UA situation. Just let it simmer. Add heat when convenient. Watch the heroes scramble while their credibility burned. Tomorrow he'd arrange something flashy. A fire in a commercial district, maybe. Far enough from UA to avoid direct confrontation, close enough to stretch their resources. Keep them divided while other pieces moved into position. Toga, meanwhile, had been following Class 1A's movements for days. Not obviously. Just present in crowds, wearing borrowed faces, observing patterns. She'd learned useful things. The brown-haired girl Uraraka always positioned herself near the telekinesis boy. Protective without being obvious about it. The green-haired one, Deku, acted as social glue, constantly checking on people. The angry blonde created space through sheer force of personality. But the telekinesis boy, Mob, he was the interesting one. Toga had seen frightened people before. Seen them try to hide it, fail, break. Mob was different. He wasn't hiding fear. He was containing it. Holding something enormous behind a very thin wall. She wondered what would happen if that wall cracked. Wondered if she'd get to see it. Back at UA, night settled over the campus. Students retreated to rooms. Security patrols increased their frequency, not obviously, but Nezu had quietly adjusted protocols after the leak. Mob lay awake staring at his ceiling. The day's events played on loop. The test, the news, Aizawa's pragmatic reassurance. The sense that forces larger than himself were beginning to move, and he was the still point they'd pivot around. Tomorrow would bring new complications. He didn't know specifics. Didn't need to. The trajectory was clear. Things were going to get worse before they got better. If they got better at all. Outside his window, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Beautiful and unreachable. A world that looked peaceful from far enough away. Distance was always the kind of lie. Okay, so honestly, Chapter 4 is awkward as hell for Aizawa. Like, bro, really drags Mob into a testing room at 3 a.m. No warning, no vibe. Just stands there staring at him with the red eyes and floating hair like he's about to do something scary. And then, nothing happens. 30 full seconds of silence. I bet that was humbling as fuck for a guy whose whole thing is shutting people down. Imagine your power is no, and the universe just ignores you. And well, this is where you really see how scared the adults are. Nezu realizes they can't control. Mob can't label him, can't put him in a neat box, so their solution is just, okay, let's hide him. And honestly, I think that's them admitting the whole hero system falls apart the second someone shows up who doesn't follow their rules. Like the system only works if everyone agrees to play along. Okay, so of course they try to keep it secret, and of course it leaks immediately because security is basically a suggestion at this point. And I think it's funny watching Class 1A react right away. Ida starts yelling about ethics and procedures, like that's gonna fix shit, and Bakugo is just mad at the universe as usual. The creepiest part, though, is All for One. Dude is sitting in the dark like a dungeon master who just found a new broken character sheet. I honestly think he's excited. He sends Lady Nagant to hunt a literal kid, which is insane overkill. But I bet he just wants to prove a point about how weak society really is. And then there's Toga, which is also weird as hell. She's not interested in Mob for blood this time. She's interested because she can see how much fear he's holding back. That's unsettling. Like she sees the crack and goes, yeah, I can work with that. Honestly, the whole chapter is just everyone moving chess pieces, making plans, acting smart, while Mob is lying in bed, stressing out about existing. No evil plans, no big dreams, just anxiety. And yeah, I think that might be the most relatable mood in the whole series. The support mission briefing lasted 10 minutes. Standard protocol for low-risk operations: assist with infrastructure assessment in a partially evacuated district, help coordinate supply distribution, maintain visible hero presence to discourage opportunistic crime. Nobody mentioned the news leak from 2 days prior. Nobody needed to. The tension sat in the room like unwelcome furniture present, uncomfortable, carefully ignored. Aizawa finished the briefing with his usual efficiency. Teams of 4. Stay within communication range. Civilians first always. Any complications you signal and wait for backup. Class 1 dispersed to assigned sectors. Mob ended up with Deku, Uraraka, and Bakugo, a configuration that felt both strategic and obvious. The ones who'd proven they could work around him without panicking. The district was quieter than the evacuation zone from days prior. Not abandoned, just hollowed out. Buildings stood intact, but empty windows, dark like closed eyes. A few residents remained elderly folks too stubborn to relocate, small business owners trying to salvage inventory, volunteers coordinating relief efforts from makeshift stations. Feels wrong, Bakugo muttered, scanning rooftops with practiced suspicion. Too quiet for this many blind spots. Not everyone evacuated, Deku countered. Some people can't afford to leave even temporarily. That's not what I meant. Uraraka positioned herself near Mob as they moved through the sector. Not hovering. Just maintaining proximity with the same casual consistency she'd shown for days. It had become pattern, her presence, as reliable as sunrise. "You okay?" she asked, voice pitched for his ears only. "Yeah." That was convincing. Mob managed something almost like a smile. "I'm functional." Also convincing. "We should work on your lying skills." They reached the supply distribution point, a converted parking garage where volunteers organized donated goods. Deku coordinated with the site manager while Bakugo established perimeter. Standard procedures smoothly executed. Mob helped unload crates. Simple work, physical, the kind that required attention but not decision-making. Uraraka worked beside him, chatting with volunteers about optimal storage configurations, turning logistics into conversation. The first shot came from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Not aimed at people, aimed at structure. A support column fractured. The sound was wrong, too sharp, too precise. Not collapse, but surgical destruction. The ceiling groaned. Concrete dust rained down as weight redistributed incorrectly. Mob's hands moved before thought finished forming. Force spread outward, catching falling debris, holding the ceiling in place through invisible architecture. His skull throbbed immediately. Too much weight. Too sudden. "Everyone out?" Deku's voice cut through the chaos. "Orderly evacuation move." Volunteers scrambled. Bakugo appeared at the entrance palms, crackling eyes scanning for threats. Todoroki materialized from adjacent patrol, already forming ice supports to reinforce what Mob was holding. "Where'd the shot come from?" Bakugo demanded. "Northeast, maybe 400 meters. Deku's analysis was automatic, years of training compressing into instant assessment. High elevation, professional angle, a second shot. Another column, further into the structure. Mob caught it, held it. His vision swam briefly. The pressure in his head built like water behind a dam, searching for cracks. "Ida," Deku shouted into his comm. "We need evacuation support at distribution point 7. Structural failure, possible sniper. Acknowledged, en route with backup." The civilians were moving, but not fast enough. Fear made people stupid. They grabbed belongings, hesitated, looked back. Precious seconds wasted on things that didn't matter. Uraraka was among them, not evacuating, but organizing. Guiding people toward exits, physically steering the confused, her quirk making debris weightless, so paths stayed clear. Third shot. This time it hit the ground near a cluster of civilians. Concrete exploded upward in deadly shrapnel. Mob spread his awareness thin, caught the fragments, stopped them mid-flight. The effort pulled something in his chest, not physical pain, but the sensation of stretching too far in too many directions. He's trying to create casualties. Todoroki noted ice spreading across the floor to stabilize cracking foundation. Force us into defensive positions. Working pretty well, Bakugo snarled. He launched himself toward the estimated shooter position, explosions propelling him across rooftops in aggressive arcs. Another shot. Not at people, at the route Bakugo was taking. The explosive boy twisted midair, barely avoiding the round. It struck the building behind him, and in the brief moment of impact, Mob saw something impossible. The bullet curved. Adjusted trajectory mid-flight. Quirk-enhanced ammunition, Deku breathed. This isn't opportunistic. This is planned. The ceiling shuddered. Mob's hold was slipping. Not from weakness, but from division. He couldn't be everywhere. Stop. Everything, protect everyone simultaneously. His power had limits. They were approaching fast. Mob, you need to drop it, Uraraka called out. Everyone's clear of the main collapse zone. There are still people. We'll get them out manually. You can't hold a building forever. She was right. Logically. But logic didn't make releasing easier. Letting go meant accepting he couldn't protect everything. Accepting that some damage was inevitable. He let go. The ceiling collapsed in stages. Controlled destruction rather than catastrophic failure. Todoroki's ice kept the worst contained. Bakugo returned having found nothing but empty sniper nests and precisely abandoned positions. Dust settled slowly. The distribution point was ruined, but the casualties were zero. Volunteers shaken, but alive. Success technically. Mob's legs felt disconnected. He sat down hard on debris that hadn't been there moments before. You all right? Deku crouched beside him. Tired. Understandable. You held a building for 4 minutes. Deku's tone carried admiration Mob didn't want. That's incredible. It's necessary. That's different. Uraraka approached with water bottles liberated from mostly destroyed supplies. Drink. Dehydration makes everything worse. Mob accepted the bottle. His hands trembled slightly aftermath of sustained effort. Not dangerous. Just honest. The shooter's gone. Bakugo reported landing nearby with barely contained frustration. Professional retreat. Left nothing behind. Whoever that was, they knew exactly what they were doing. Testing us, Todoroki suggested. Specifically testing Mob's response parameters. Why? Uraraka's question was sharp. What's the point of testing? Acquisition. Ida had arrived with backup hero students from other classes securing the perimeter. If someone wants to understand capabilities before attempting capture, they'd need baseline data. The implications settled heavy. This wasn't random violence. This was reconnaissance. Someone was learning how Mob worked, what he protected, where his limits were. We need to report this, Deku decided. Full threat assessment. This changes the risk profile for future operations. They returned to UA under heightened security. The transport was quiet, not peaceful silence, but the tense variety that came from people processing danger. Mob watched the city pass outside armored windows, replaying the attack in fragments. The shots had been precise. Never aimed to kill. Always aimed to force response. Like an experiment where Mob was both subject and test. At UA, Aizawa was waiting. The debriefing was thorough. Every detail cataloged, analyzed, fit into larger patterns. Aizawa's questions were sharp, designed to extract maximum information from minimum words. Did you see the shooter? He asked Mob directly. No, I was focused on catching things. Did you feel targeted, like the attack was aimed at you specifically? Mob considered this. Not at me, at forcing me to react. That's the same thing, Bakugo interjected. No, Todoroki corrected. It's worse. Targeting someone directly is straightforward. Making them choose between action and consequences is psychological. Aizawa absorbed this expression, unreadable. You're all benched from external operations until we assess threat level. That's what Deku started. Non-negotiable. Whoever's orchestrating this has resources, skill, and specific interest in Kageyama. We don't send you back out until we understand what we're dealing with. After dismissal, Class 1. A gathered in the common room. The atmosphere was different now. Less routine, more vigilance. Everyone understood they'd crossed a threshold. The leak hadn't just exposed Mob, it had painted a target. So what do we do? Mina asked. Just wait for the next attack. We train, Ida answered. Improve response protocols. Ensure we're prepared for coordinated assault. We watch each other's backs, Uraraka added. That's what teams do. Mob listened to them strategize, grateful and guilty in equal measure. They were adjusting their entire operational framework around keeping him safe. He was the reason they couldn't do their jobs properly. The reason danger had found them. Later, alone in his room, he tried to process the day. The attack had been surgical, clinical. Someone out there was studying him like he was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be confronted. His phone buzzed. Message from Uraraka. Don't overthink it. We're okay. You're okay. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. Tonight we rest. Simple words. Practical comfort. He wanted to believe them. Across the city, Lady Nagant reviewed the day's data. Footage from her scope's integrated camera. Biometric readings. Response times. Targeting priorities. The boy was exactly as advertised, powerful, precise, and completely reactive. He didn't attack. Didn't pursue. Just defended. Held the line while others evacuated. Predictable, exploitable. She noted the brown-haired girl. Zero gravity quirk. Consistently close to the target. He tracked her location even while managing multiple tasks. Unconscious prioritization. Found the lever, she noted aloud. Next time wouldn't be about testing the shield. It would be about removing what the shield protected. She began planning the next operation. Different location, different variables. Same objective push until something broke. In his hidden observation post, All for One watched the same footage Nagant had captured. The boy holding a collapsing building. The exhaustion afterward. The way he checked on others before himself. Perfect, he murmured. Absolutely perfect. Not because of the power was common enough, but because of the restraint. The desperate desire to be good in a world that punished goodness. That kind of psychology was fragile. Beautiful and fragile. All you had to do was find the right pressure point. And Lady Nagant, efficient as always, had just identified it. The pieces were moving. The board was set. Soon the boy would have to choose control or connection. His power or his principles. All for One already knew which one would break first. He closed the video feed and began composing new instructions. Phase 2 was about to commence. Okay, so honestly, this chapter is stressful as fuck from the jump. Like, well, it starts as this boring supply run, and I bet everyone thought it was going to be chill. Then boom, it turns into Lady Nagant playing the deadliest game of Jenga ever. And Mob is literally the only piece holding the whole thing together. That shit is terrifying. And honestly, Nagant is smart as hell here. She doesn't even try to shoot Mob because, okay guys, that would be dumb and useless. Instead, she shoots the building above him, which is way worse. Now Mob has to hold everything up, watch people, and not lose control all at once. I think that's the real attack. She's trying to overload his brain until he breaks. I really feel bad for Mob here. He's basically a human pillar for an entire district, just standing there holding everything together, while Bakugo is running around yelling at rooftops and cussing at the air, because the sniper is already like 3 steps ahead. Bakugo is doing his best, but you can tell he's pissed because he can't punch the problem. The most intense moment, I think, is when Uraraka tells Mob to drop the ceiling. That's such a heavy thing to say to someone who's terrified of hurting anyone. But well, she's right. You can't save everybody if you pass out and die trying. It's fucked, but it's real. And okay, so it gets even creepier when you realize All for One is just watching this like it's gameplay footage. I bet he's smiling too. He figures out real fast that Mob's weakness isn't his power, it's the fact that he's too damn nice. Mob would rather suffer than let one random stranger get hurt by a falling block. The scariest part, though, is Nagant realizing Uraraka is the emotional anchor, like, oh shit. That instantly puts a target on her back. Because of course, villains in this world love nothing more than hurting teenagers to make a point. So yeah, this chapter isn't about explosions or power levels. It's about pressure. And Mob is cracking under it slowly because he cares too much. And that honestly makes it hard as hell to watch. The second attack came 36 hours after the first. No warning, no build-up. Just the sharp crack of a rifle shot and glass exploding inward at the community center where Class 1A was coordinating supply delivery. Mob dropped flat on instinct. Around him, others reacted with the fluid precision of people who'd trained for this exact scenario. Deku was already moving, analyzing angles. Bakugo launched toward the source. Todoroki formed ice shields across vulnerable entry points, but the shot hadn't been aimed at them. Outside, a support beam on the adjacent building fractured. The structure groaned. People inside, volunteers, civilians, refugees who'd finally felt safe enough to accept help, began screaming. Mob was through the door before conscious thought caught up. His power spread outward, catching the building's weight before it could redistribute catastrophically. Hold it. Just hold it long enough for evacuation. Clear the building. Ida's voice carried over chaos, organizing panic into movement. East exit remains stable. Follow emergency protocol. Another shot. Different angle. A second building further down the block. Mob split his focus. Extended his reach. Held both structures simultaneously. The pressure in his skull spiked immediately. Not pain exactly, but the sensation of pushing against limits that weren't meant to flex this far. He's forcing you to spread thin. Deku assessed, rapidly appearing at Mob's side. Creating multiple crisis points so you can't concentrate. I know. Mob's jaw clenched. I can hold them. Just get people out. Deku hesitated for half a second, then nodded and sprinted toward the evacuation efforts. Third shot, a water tower 3 blocks over. The tank ruptured thousands of gallons, threatening to flood streets where people were still moving. Mob caught the water, redirected the flow, held 2 buildings, and managed to flood. His vision started to blur at the edges. Fourth shot, fifth, sixth, each one calculated, each one forcing response. The shooter Nagant wasn't trying to kill anyone. She was testing capacity, finding the breaking point. Mob's hands shook. Sweat ran cold down his spine despite the physical exertion being minimal. This wasn't about muscle fatigue. This was about how much his mind could hold before fractures appeared. Bakugo, did you find her? Deku shouted into comms. Negative. She's moving between positions. Every time I close in, she's already gone. Todoroki, can you obstruct sight lines? Working on it. Ice fog takes time to build density. Another shot. A crane on a construction site load, still attached. If it fell wrong, it would sweep through an entire intersection. Mob grabbed it, held it suspended, added it to the growing collection of disasters he was preventing through pure sustained will. The pressure wasn't building linearly anymore. It was accelerating. Each new task compounded the difficulty of maintaining the previous ones. Like juggling where every ball weighed more than the last. Mob Uraraka appeared beside him, her hand on his shoulder. Physical contact grounding. You need to let something go. You can't hold everything. People will get hurt. People will get hurt anyway if you collapse. Her voice was firm but not harsh. Prioritize. We'll handle secondary concerns. She was right. Tactically, strategically, obviously right. But choosing what to drop meant choosing what broke. Who got hurt? Which disaster was acceptable? I can't. Another shot. This one at ground level near a cluster of elderly civilians, too slow to evacuate quickly. Mob's response was automatic. Barrier-formed deflected shrapnel kept them safe. But something else slipped. One of the buildings shifted slightly before he caught it again. A crack widened in concrete. His breathing was too fast. Hyperventilation creeping in despite his attempts to control it. Mob, look at me. Uraraka moved directly into his line of sight. Breathe with me. In, out, stay present. He tried. Focused on her face instead of the collapsing infrastructure, the fleeing people, the rifle shots that kept coming in measured intervals. But then he saw it. Saw her standing exposed while he was locked in place, maintaining a dozen different preventions simultaneously. Saw her as a target because she was close to him. The realization hit like ice water. She was in danger because of proximity to him. Because she'd chosen to stand next to the person everyone was hunting. You need to move, he managed. You're too close. If she aims at you, she won't. You don't know that. Neither do you. So we work with what's in front of us. Uraraka squeezed his shoulder once, then released. I'm going to help with evacuation. You hold what you're holding. We'll make it work. She left before he could argue. The attacks continued. Relentless. Precise. Never quite crossing the line into mass casualty, always dancing right at the edge, where response was mandatory, but defense was exhausting. Bakugo reappeared face dark with frustration. She's a ghost. Professional movement zero pattern. Every nest is pre-planned and abandoned the moment she fires. Then we stop chasing and start predicting, Deku decided. He pulled up a tactical map on his phone, marking attack sites. She's pushing Mob toward exhaustion. That means she needs him conscious, but compromised. Next target will be, he traced a line. There. Maximum civilian density, minimal cover. How do you know? Because that's what I'd do if I wanted to guarantee response. They moved before Deku finished explaining. Ida carried injured civilians to triage. Todoroki expanded his ice fog, making targeting harder. Bakugo took a position where he could intercept rather than chase. The next shot came exactly where Deku predicted. This time Bakugo was ready. He launched explosions not at the shooter, but at the trajectory, disrupting aim enough that the shot went wide. Not a miss too controlled for that, but a deviation. Got your attention now. Bakugo snarled toward empty rooftops. Response came immediately. 2 shots in rapid succession, both aimed at creating structural failures that would require intervention. Mob caught them. But his movements were slower now. Reaction time degrading. The pressure in his head had gone from uncomfortable to nearly unbearable. Something was building. Had been building since the first shot. A feeling like rising water, inexorable and cold. His awareness was fragmenting part of him, holding buildings part, tracking people part, trying to stay coherent. The edges of his vision started to darken. Not unconsciousness. Something else. Something that felt like his mind making room for more power than it was meant to contain. Mob. Deku's voice seemed distant. Your eyes. Mob blinked. Focused. Pulled himself back from wherever he'd started drifting. Not yet. He couldn't let go yet. Too many people still exposed. Too much that could go wrong. But the sensation didn't fade, just retreated. Waiting. High above the chaos, Lady Nagant tracked targets through her scope. The boy was exactly as predicted. Responsive, protective, increasingly unstable. Each shot pushed him closer to the edge she'd been hired to identify. But that wasn't what held her attention anymore. The brown-haired girl. 0 gravity quirk. She kept returning to the boy's position, not random proximity, deliberate choice. Even when evacuation duty pulled her away, she circled back, checked on him, maintained connection. Nagant adjusted her scope, calculated windage. confirmed the shot was viable, then lowered her rifle. Not yet. First let them think they were winning. Let exhaustion set in, let guards drop, then remove the one thing keeping him anchored. She repositioned, moved to her final nest of the day. This one had perfect sightlines to where the girl would be in approximately 8 minutes, based on current evacuation patterns. Patience was part of marksmanship. She'd waited longer for less certain shots. Far from the active zone, Dabi watched smoke rise from the district. Not his smoke, he hadn't started anything today. This was someone else's work. Efficient, he noted. Wonder how long before it stops being surgical. He pulled out his phone, sent a message to contacts who'd appreciate the chaos. UA's golden children under attack. Might want to document this before they spin it. Within minutes, footage would leak. Civilians would see heroes struggling. The illusion of control would crack a little more. Dabi's work was always about the long game. Let other people do the dramatic violence. He'd just make sure everyone watched it crumble. Back in the combat zone, the attacks finally stopped. Not gradually, just ceased. One moment Mob was holding 4 different disasters at once. The next, silence. He maintained his grip for 30 seconds longer, waiting for the follow-up that had to be coming, but nothing materialized. Clear, Deku's question was cautious. I think so. Mob started releasing his hold carefully. Buildings settled with groans but remained stable. Water drained into storm systems. The crane lowered safely. When everything was secured, when all the disasters were averted, Mob finally let himself feel the cost. His legs gave out. He didn't fall. Todoroki caught him ice forming a support before gravity completed the job. Easy, you're done. It's over. Over. The word felt premature. Nothing felt over. Just paused. Uraraka ran over medical kit in hand. Are you hurt? No, just tired. Tired doesn't make you collapse. She checked his pulse pupil's basic field assessment. When's the last time you ate, drank water, slept properly? Mob couldn't remember. The days had blurred together since the first attack. Constant vigilance interrupted rest meals, forgotten in favor of staying alert. We need to get him back to UA, Deku determined. Full medical evaluation, no arguments. Mob wanted to argue anyway. Wanted to point out that retreating meant leaving people vulnerable, that his exhaustion was a tactical liability, that everything would be fine if he just pushed through. But his body had already made the decision. He couldn't stand without support, couldn't focus properly. The edges of his awareness kept trying to drift toward that dark space where power lived without restraint. He'd touched something today, not percent, but close. Close enough to feel its pull, close enough to understand that next time there might not be enough of him left to pull back. They transported him in an armored medical vehicle. Uraraka insisted on riding along, monitoring vitals that stayed stable but concerning. Deku coordinated cleanup and documentation. Bakugo swept the perimeter one more time, finding nothing but evidence of meticulous planning. At UA, recovery girl was waiting. Bring him directly to medical, she commanded. I want full workup, neurological, metabolic, psychological, everything. The examination took hours. Mob answered questions on autopilot. Yes, he felt exhausted. No, nothing hurt specifically. Yes, his vision had gotten strange toward the end. No, he didn't lose consciousness. They let him rest eventually. Private room monitoring equipment humming quietly. The kind of silence that should have been comforting but felt ominous. Uraraka sat in the chair beside his bed. She'd refused to leave despite recovery girl's suggestions that he needed rest. You scared us today, she said quietly. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, just don't do it again. There's helping people, and then there's trying to be Atlas. You're not supposed to hold up the entire world alone. Felt like I had to, I know. But next time, remember we're there too. Carrying weight. You don't have to be the only one. Mob wanted to believe that. Wanted to trust that distribution of burden was possible. But today had proven otherwise. When crisis came, when choices had to be made instantaneously, he was the one who could act fast enough to prevent disaster. That made him necessary. And necessity was just another word for inevitable sacrifice. Across the medical wing, in a secure conference room, Aizawa and Nezu reviewed the day's events. This was coordinated reconnaissance, Nezu stated. Multiple attack vectors designed specifically to test Kageyama's limits and responses. And his connections, Aizawa added. Did you see the pattern? Every time Uraraka approached him, the attacks intensified. They're identifying his anchor point. Then we need to adjust security protocols accordingly. Or we accept that whoever's orchestrating this has already identified the vulnerability and prepare for them to exploit it. Nezu's paws steepled. How do we protect someone from caring about people? We can't. We just make sure those people are harder to use as leverage. They continued planning late into the night. Adjusting patrol routes, implementing new security measures, preparing contingencies for escalation. But both of them knew they were reacting. And reactive strategy only worked until the opponent stopped testing and started executing. In her final position of the day, Lady Nagant disassembled her rifle. Today had been productive. The boy's parameters were established. His weaknesses identified. The girl was confirmed as the primary emotional anchor. Phase 2 was ready to commence. She checked her encrypted phone. New message from All for One. Proceed when optimal. Acquisition secondary to disruption. Nagant smiled slightly. Disruption she could do. Next time, the brown-haired girl wouldn't walk away from their encounter. Not dead, too obvious, but hurt. Critically. Just enough to break whatever was holding the boy together. And when he broke, the real assessment could begin. She finished packing her equipment and disappeared into the city night. Behind her in the district, she'd turned into a testing ground. Heroes continued their cleanup. They thought they'd survived. They'd only been measured. Okay. For Chapter 6, Lady Nagant is basically playing the most intense game of Jenga ever, and Mob is the fucking table. She's not even aiming at people, she's just spamming shots at buildings. Like, okay, let's see how many plates this kid can spin before he snaps. That is such a try-hard villain move, but damn, it works. And it's actually wild watching Mob hold up a whole crane, a water tower, and 2 buildings at the same time. Like, that's insane. His brain is clearly turning into soup, his vision is going blurry, and he still refuses to let anything fall. I honestly think this proves his only real weakness is that he cares way too much. He wants to save literally everyone, even when his body is screaming at him to stop. Okay, guys, Bakugo is running around yelling at empty rooftops like an angry little Pomeranian. He's pissed, he's loud, and he can't find shit because Nagant is ghosting him every time. I bet that's humiliating for someone who thinks every problem can be solved by blowing it up. The scariest moment, though, is Uraraka telling Mob to drop a building. That's such a heavy thing to say. But honestly, she's right. He was seconds away from passing out and dropping everything anyway. And I think this really shows she's the only one who can reach him when he's zoning out and losing control. And okay, so it gets even creepier when you remember, All for One is just watching all of this from his basement, like he's reviewing esports replays. Dude realizes real quick that Mob isn't going to break physically, so the only option left is to break him emotionally. That's why he's already planning to target Uraraka next. The whole vibe of this chapter is just setting up disaster. Nagant figured out that the best way to destroy the overpowered psychic kid isn't to fight him, it's to hurt the person keeping him grounded. It's such a classic villain move, and honestly, yeah. It works every damn time. Recovery lasted 2 days. Mob was cleared for limited activity. Though Recovery Girl made it clear limited meant supervised observation, not field operations. He attended classes, ate meals, participated in conversations with responses that sounded right, even when he wasn't entirely present. The facade held because everyone wanted to believe he was recovering. Only Uraraka seemed to notice the discrepancy. "You're doing that thing again," she mentioned during lunch, keeping her tone light. "What thing?" "Where you're here but not really here. Like you're running calculations in the background." Mob set down his chopsticks. "I'm fine." "That's exactly what someone who isn't fine would say." She pushed a container of fruit toward him. "Eat." "You skipped breakfast?" He hadn't meant to skip breakfast. Time had just slipped. One moment he was waking up, the next he was in class, the intervening hours lost to vigilance. He couldn't quite turn off. "I'll eat later." "You'll eat now. Doctor's orders?" She smiled, but her eyes held concern that went deeper than casual friendship. "Someone has to make sure you don't forget basic human maintenance." 3 tables over, Deku was explaining something about hero history. Bakugo was ignoring him with focused intensity. Todoroki ate in his characteristic silence. Everything normal, everything safe. The attack came during afternoon patrol. Class 1A had been assigned a sector that should have been secure residential area, mostly cleared, minimal civilian presence. Reconnaissance more than active duty, the kind of assignment designed to ease back into operations without excessive risk. They should have known better. Mob was helping Ida document structural damage when the first shot rang out. Not at them. At a support structure 2 blocks away. A building that still had people inside despite evacuation orders. He reacted immediately, power spreading outward to catch collapsing framework. Standard response. He'd done this dozens of times now. Pattern recognition kicked in. This was the same tactic from 2 days ago. Multiple crisis points designed to force divided attention. "She's back," Bakugo snarled, already launching toward probable firing positions. Deku coordinated evacuation, while Todoroki established defensive barriers. The team moved with practiced efficiency, each person fulfilling their role in a choreography they'd rehearsed through necessity. Mob split his focus, held multiple structures, managed cascading failures. His head throbbed, the same pressure from before, building faster this time, because he was starting from depletion rather than full capacity. "We need to get civilians clear," Uraraka shouted, using her quirk to float debris out of escape routes. More shots, faster intervals. Nagant wasn't testing anymore. She was executing a plan they'd already mapped during previous encounters. "She knows our response patterns," Deku realized. "Every position we take, every defensive formation, she's already accounted for it." "Then we need to break pattern," Todoroki suggested. But breaking pattern meant unpredictability. And unpredictability in disaster response meant casualties. They were trapped in tactical requirements. Had to respond the way training dictated. Had to prioritize civilian safety. Had to maintain formation. Nagant was counting on exactly that. The shots continued. Building after building. Crisis after crisis. Mob's power stretched thinner with each new emergency. The darkness at the edge of his awareness crept closer. That space where control dissolved and something else took over. Not yet. He couldn't afford to lose himself yet. Too many people still at risk. "Mob, you need to drop something." Uraraka appeared beside him again, her presence grounding even in chaos. "You can't hold everything." "I know what I'm doing. I know you know. But knowing and being able are different things. Let us help carry this." She reached for his arm. Contact that should have been steadying, but instead triggered realization she was close. Exposed. Standing next to the person everyone was targeting. "You need to move," Mob insisted. "Get somewhere safe." "I am safe. I'm with..." The shot that ended the sentence came from an angle none of them had anticipated. Not at infrastructure, not at civilians. At Uraraka, the round caught her in the shoulder. Impact spun her, and for one terrible moment, Mob saw her expression, not pain, yet just surprise. Then she was falling, and the world contracted to that single point of descent. She hit the ground, didn't get up. Her hand reached toward him, trembling. "Mob-kun." Her voice was weak. "It's okay." She didn't finish. Her hand dropped. Something inside Mob disconnected, not broke. Disconnected. Like a plug pulled from a socket, cutting power to systems that maintained order. The buildings he'd been holding settled. Gently, actually. Set down with more care than he'd managed, while conscious of the effort. Then silence. Not absence of sound. Presence of something that swallowed sound. Ate it. Made it irrelevant. The bullet that had been traveling toward another target stopped. Hung in the air, rotation visible, but motion gone. It wasn't caught. It simply wasn't moving anymore. Bakugo froze mid-explosion blast, captured in a sphere of pressure that wouldn't release. Todoroki's ice stopped growing. The air stopped moving. Even dust particles hung suspended, tiny constellations of debris existing without momentum. Mob stood in the center of it all. His eyes were open, but empty. Not vacant, that implied absence. These held something too large for human expression to contain. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just stood there while reality bent around him. Mob. Deku's voice sounded distant despite proximity. Muffled like speaking through water. "Can you hear me?" No response. Deku took a step forward. The ground felt wrong, not unstable, just resistant. Like walking through substance thicker than air. "We need to get to Uraraka," Ida assessed, but his words came out slow, stretched. They tried to move. Found themselves locked in place, not by force, by absence of permission. The space around them had forgotten how to allow movement. High above, Nagant tried to adjust her rifle. Her hands wouldn't respond. She looked down at them, fingers intact, muscles responding to neural commands. But the weapon in her grip was becoming something else. Metal warping without heat, bending in ways that violated basic material physics. The rifle collapsed into an unusable sculpture. She released it instinctively. It didn't fall. Just hung there, distorted testimony to forces that shouldn't exist. She tried to move. Managed 3 steps before the pressure became too much. Not crushing. Just present. Like the atmosphere had become aware and disapproving. In the streets below, Toga had been watching from a safe distance. Close enough to observe, far enough to escape. That calculus had just become irrelevant. She tried to run. Her legs moved, but distance didn't change. Running in place. The city around her felt flattened, depth perception failing because all measurement had become suspect. This isn't... She couldn't finish the thought. Terror was replacing curiosity. This wasn't a quirk. Quirks had rules. This was something else. Dabi, several blocks away, felt the change. The fire he'd been preparing sputtered. Not extinguished. Just forgot how to burn. Chemical reactions pausing mid-process. What the hell? He looked toward the epicenter. Saw nothing but knew exactly where it was. Could feel it. A dead spot in reality where something was very, very wrong. He started moving away, faster. Then stopped as a message came through his phone. From All for One. Do not approach. Observe from distance. For once, Dabi didn't need to be told twice. At the epicenter, Mob remained motionless. Around him, the world was breaking in slow motion. Not catastrophic destruction. Quiet revision. Things stopping where they were and questioning whether they'd ever been moving at all. Deku tried again. Mob, we need you to come back. Uraraka needs help. She's hurt. We need to get her to recovery, girl. Nothing. Please. Deku's voice cracked slightly. I know you're scared. I know this is overwhelming. But we need you here. With us. Not wherever you are right now. You, still nothing. Bakugo, locked in his frozen explosion, managed to speak through clenched teeth. Stop talking at him like he's listening. He's not there anymore. Then where is he? How the fuck should I know? Somewhere we can't reach. Bakugo strained against the invisible constraint. And every second we waste trying to talk him down is a second she's bleeding. That penetrated. Deku looked at Uraraka's still form, blood pooling slowly. Too slowly, even bleeding had slowed in the distorted space. "We need to get to her," Todoroki stated. "Whatever this is, we work around it." They tried, pushed against the resistance, gained centimeters through sheer determination. It was like walking through setting concrete, possible, but exhausting. Then the ground trembled. Not earthquake tremors, impact tremors. Something massive approaching. Makia. The giant emerged from distant ruins, called by All for One's command. A walking disaster designed to overwhelm through pure physical presence. He charged toward the epicenter. Buildings crumbled under his stride. Earth split. The kind of force that should have scattered everyone in its path. He reached the boundary of mob's influence and stopped. Not crashed, not deflected, simply ceased forward motion. All that momentum, all that mass halted by something that didn't bother acknowledging physics. Makia tried to push through, muscle straining, power building. The effort should have been enough to level city blocks. Nothing changed. He couldn't advance. Couldn't retreat. Just stood there, frozen mid-stride, more statue than threat. From his observation point, All for One watched through multiple camera feeds. Saw his most powerful asset rendered completely ineffective, not defeated, negated. "Fascinating," he murmured, "and problematic." He'd wanted to see the boy's limits, wanted to understand what happened when control broke. Now he understood there were no limits, just absence of restriction. The boy wasn't destroying. He was existing too intensely for destruction to occur near him. All for One made a decision. Sent orders to retreat. This wasn't the time to push further. This was the time to document and withdraw. Back at the epicenter, Deku finally reached Uraraka. The last few meters had taken minutes. When he touched her checking pulse and breathing, everything felt distant, like performing surgery through thick gloves. She was alive. Bleeding, but alive. The shot had missed anything immediately fatal. "She's okay," Deku called out. "Mob, she's okay. She's hurt, but she's alive." No response. "Can you hear me? Uraraka's alive." Silence. Bakugo managed to reach them through sheer angry determination. "He can't hear you. Or he can and doesn't care. Either way, talking isn't working." "Then what do we do?" "Hell if I know. This is so far beyond training, I don't even know what question to ask." They stood in the altered space. All around them, the world waited. Buildings poised between standing and falling. People frozen mid-step. Even light seemed to move strangely, bending around the boy who'd forgotten how to be present. Mob stood alone. Empty. Somewhere too far for voices to reach. And no one knew how to bring him back. The longer it stayed that way, the worse it would become. Okay, so honestly, this chapter is just crazy, but in a really scary way. I think Lady Nagant thought she was being smart, but, well, she fucked up bad. I bet she really believed that if she shot Uraraka, Mob would break and be easier to control. Instead, he just shut everything down. Like, okay guys, when everything stops, that shit is terrifying. The bullet stops the air, stops, even the dust stops moving. I think that's the moment you realize Mob isn't just strong. He can tell the whole world to sit the fuck down. He's not yelling or going wild. He's just empty. And honestly, that's way scarier. And well, Makia showing up only to freeze mid-step is both funny and scary. I bet he thought he was about to destroy everything. And instead he got hit with the biggest lag ever. Honestly, All for One must be watching this, thinking, yeah, well, I'm screwed because his big plan just got ruined by a kid having a breakdown. I think Deku walking into that frozen space is such a Deku thing to do. Everyone else is scared as hell. And he's like, okay, so I'll talk to him. Is it stupid? Maybe. But honestly, it works. Mob doesn't need to fight. He just needs someone to remind him he's still human. And well, Toga running away. The second she sees what's happening is the smartest move in the chapter. I bet she took one look and thought, "New fuck this," and dipped. Can't even blame her. The ending is honestly really soft. Uraraka wakes up after getting shot, and instead of freaking out, she comforts Mob. Like she's hurt and still holding him together. I think without her, everything would have gone way worse. So yeah, honestly, this chapter shows that feelings can fuck things up way more than any power ever could. Time moved strangely in the altered space. Seconds stretched, minutes compressed. Measurement became suggestion rather than fact. But urgency remained real. We have to get to her. Deku's statement cut through the suspended moment. Not addressing Mob, he'd tried that and failed. This was for the team, for the people who could still act. Bakugo had already started moving again, forcing progress through sheer refusal to accept limitation. Then move. Standing around talking about it won't close the distance. They pushed forward. Every step required focus. The resistance wasn't physical force, more like walking through atmosphere that had forgotten how to let things pass. But muscle memory and determination counted for something. Slowly, painfully, they reached Uraraka. Todoroki arrived, first ice forming beneath her to stabilize position. Shoulder wound, through and through. She's losing blood, but it's manageable. Get her out, Deku decided. Priority 1 is medical attention. What about him? Bakugo jerked his head toward Mob, still standing in that terrible stillness. We can't help him if we're all trapped here. Ida, you're fastest. Can you make the relay? Ida tested the resistance. Found that with enough effort, movement was possible. Affirmative. I'll get her to recovery, girl. Go. Everyone else establish perimeter. Keep civilians clear and give him space. Space for what? Bakugo demanded. For whatever comes next. They worked with efficient coordination, born from crisis. Todoroki created barriers to redirect any remaining threats. Bakugo launched toward where Makia stood frozen, ensuring the giant wouldn't advance if when normal physics resumed. Ida carried Uraraka with careful urgency, each step measured against the distorted environment. Deku stayed, stood outside the epicenter where Mob existed in whatever state had replaced consciousness. The air here felt thicker, pressure building without release. I'm not leaving, Deku said quietly. Not shouting, not demanding, just stating a fact. Everyone else has tasks. Mine is staying here with you. No response. Hadn't expected one. You're probably not hearing this. Probably not aware of anything right now. But I'm going to keep talking anyway. Because that's what friends do. They show up and stay even when it's uncomfortable. The silence pressed back, heavy and absolute. Uraraka's okay. I know you think you lost her. I know that's what triggered this. Deku gestured vaguely at the suspended reality. But she's alive, hurt but alive. Ida's getting her to recovery, girl, right now. The distortion didn't lessen. But it didn't increase either. You've been carrying too much, Deku continued. Ever since you got here, trying to be small. Trying not to cause problems. Trying to protect everyone while making yourself disappear. That's not sustainable. People aren't meant to carry that alone. A building block away, Todoroki redirected debris flow. Ice structures spreading like frozen scaffolding, providing stability where normal support had failed. Bakugo reached Makia. The giant remained locked mid-stride, muscles straining against constraint they couldn't comprehend. You, big and stupid. When this ends, you turn around and leave. Got it? Makia couldn't respond. Could barely process the command. But Bakugo's presence, aggressive and undeniable, planted a seed. When freedom returned, retreat would seem preferable to staying. Back at the epicenter, Deku continued his one-sided conversation. Remember what we said after that first day? That we don't leave people behind? We meant that. Not just when things are easy. Especially when things are hard. He took a step closer. The resistance increased immediately, like pushing into water that was fighting back. I'm coming closer now. Just so you know, not trying to attack, not trying to fix you, just being present. Because I think that's what you need right now. Someone who won't run away. Another step. The pressure built. His muscles ached from effort that shouldn't require effort. But he pushed through. You saved a lot of people today. You've saved people every time danger showed up. That counts for something. That matters. Even if right now you can't feel it mattering. Step by step. Each one harder than the last. But Deku had walked through worse. Had pushed past limitations before. This was just another version of the same choice: keep going or give up. He chose going. When you come back, and you will come back, we'll still be here. Not as handlers, not as guards, as friends. People who want you around. Not in spite of your power, but including it. All of you, 10 meters away. 5. The air felt solid now. Breathing required conscious effort. You asked me once what we do when helping makes things worse. Remember? And I said we show up anyway. I still believe that. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we keep showing up. 3 meters. The thing about anchors, Deku's voice strained slightly from exertion, is that they work both ways. They keep boats from drifting. But they also give boats something to pull against, something to use for stability. You've been our anchor plenty of times. Let us be yours now. He reached out, hand extended toward Mob's shoulder. The distance was impossibly short and infinitely far. Come back, Mob. We're still here. We're not going anywhere. His hand made contact. The moment stretched. 1 heartbeat, 2, 3. Then something shifted. Not dramatic, not explosive, just adjustment. Like a radio finding the right frequency after static. The bullet that had been suspended fell. Clattered against pavement with mundane finality. Bakugo's frozen explosion released. He caught himself mid-blast, redirecting at the last second. About damn time. Todoroki's ice resumed growing. He adjusted immediately, reshaping structure to account for renewed physics. Sound returned. Not all at once. Gradually. Like the world remembering how to be loud. And Mob's eyes focused, not on Deku, not on anything specific. Just focused. Present again. Human again. Uraraka. His voice was barely audible. Scraped raw by something that had nothing to do with screaming. She's okay. Being treated now. She'll be fine. I know, but she's alive. You'll be able to talk to her soon. Mob's legs gave out. Deku caught him before gravity completed the job. The boy was heavier than he looked, or maybe just completely depleted. Dead weight of exhaustion. Let's sit down, Deku suggested, lowering them both to the ground. You've earned a rest. They sat in the epicenter of what had been altered reality. Around them, the world slowly normalized. People resumed movement. Buildings settled into stable positions. Even the air felt lighter. Across the district, Lady Nagant packed her equipment. She'd watched the entire sequence through her scope. Watched the green-haired boy walk into something that had stopped everyone else. Watched him reach the untouchable target through nothing but stubborn persistence. She'd been hired to test the boy, to find weaknesses, to create leverage. Instead, she'd discovered something that made leverage irrelevant. The boy wasn't being protected by others. He was being held together by them. And you couldn't break that kind of connection through violence. Only patience. Only time. Maybe not even then. She sent her final report to All for One. Target acquisition not viable. Emotional anchors too strong. Recommend different approach. Then she disappeared. Job complete but unsuccessful. The distinction mattered. Toga had fled during the chaos, not retreating tactically, just running. The boy's emptiness had been too much, too similar to something she didn't want to examine. She preferred masks, preferred pretending. The raw absence Mob had displayed was too honest. She wouldn't return. Not for this target. Some things weren't worth the discomfort. Dabi watched from his distant position as normalcy reasserted itself. He documented everything. Posted clips to anonymous accounts, seeded doubt in forums and comment sections. UA's student had leveled a district through existing. The implications would ripple for weeks. His work was done. Let the heroes explain this one. All for One reviewed the footage and reports. The boy had been everything promised: powerful, uncontrollable, dangerous. But the conclusion was unexpected. Force couldn't claim him. Fear couldn't break him. The emotional connections ran deeper than self-preservation. Interesting, he murmured, and ultimately unusable. He marked the file as a low priority. Some assets required too much effort to acquire. Better to let the heroes struggle with the burden while he focused on more accessible targets. The boy would remain a wild card. Unpredictable, potentially disruptive, but not his weapon. That would have to be enough. At UA's medical wing, recovery girl finished treating Uraraka. The wound was clean. No major arteries, no permanent damage, just pain and recovery time. You'll be fine, recovery girl confirmed. Rest for a few days. No strenuous activity for a week. But no arguments. You were shot. That requires recovery. Uraraka settled back against pillows. Is Mob okay? Physically, he'll survive. Emotionally, recovery girl's expression softened slightly. That depends on what happens next. Can I see him? When he's stable. For now, rest. But Uraraka couldn't rest. Not until she knew. Not until she saw for herself that he'd come back from wherever that emptiness had taken him. In another room, Mob sat on an examination table while doctors performed basic assessments. Blood pressure, reflexes, pupil response. Everything came back within normal ranges, which somehow felt inadequate for what had just occurred. Aizawa stood nearby, arms crossed. Do you remember what happened? Some of it, not all. What's the last clear memory? Uraraka falling. Mob's hands clenched. I thought she was gone. And then, nothing. Just blank. The nothing lasted approximately 12 minutes, during which you held an entire district in suspended animation. No casualties, no major damage beyond what was already present. But you rendered dozens of people, including heroes, completely immobile. I didn't mean to. I know. That's what makes it complicated. Aizawa moved closer. We can't afford another incident like this. Not because of political concerns or public opinion. Because you might not come back next time. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing. I'm not scolding. I'm stating reality. You reached a threshold today that most quirk users never approach, and you pulled back. That shows control even if it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like control. It feels like drowning. Then we learn to swim. Together. Because you're not doing this alone anymore. Aizawa's tone allowed no argument. UA is keeping you. Not as a project, as a student. That means you get the same support, training, and expectations as everyone else. Understood. Mob looked up. Even after today, especially after today. You think Class 1A hasn't had members lose control? You think we haven't dealt with quirks that endangered everyone nearby? This isn't new territory. Just new specifics. But are you listening? You're staying. That's not a question. It's a decision that's already been made. The only question is whether you accept it. Mob wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the reasons this was dangerous, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, something else surfaced. Is Uraraka really okay? Go see for yourself. They let him visit after his own examination concluded. Recovery girl supervised, ensuring neither patient overexerted, but allowed them privacy. Uraraka's room was quiet. sterile. She looked small against the medical equipment, though her expression was alert. "Hey." Her voice was soft but steady. "You look terrible. You got shot." "I'm aware. It hurt." She gestured to the chair beside her bed. "Sit down before you fall down." Mob sat. Couldn't quite look at her directly. "I thought you were dead." "I thought about that briefly. Decided against it. Too much paperwork." "This isn't funny." "No, it's not." Her tone gentled. "But I'm okay, really. And you came back. That's what matters. I could have hurt everyone, but you didn't. Even at your worst, you didn't hurt anyone. You just paused things. Like hitting a giant stop button. That's still dangerous." Mob. She waited until he looked at her. "Everything about hero work is dangerous. My quirk makes me sick. Bakugo's explosions could kill people. Todoroki's ice could freeze someone solid. We're all dangerous. The difference is choosing what we do with that danger. What if next time I can't choose? Then we'll be there to help you choose. That's what teams do. That's what we promised." "Remember." He remembered. The words from days ago that felt like years. The quiet assurance that they wouldn't leave. That he belonged. "I want to stay," he admitted quietly. "But I don't know if that's safe." Nowhere is completely safe. UA comes close. But the real safety isn't in the walls. It's in having people who won't run when things get hard. She shifted, slightly wincing at the movement. "We didn't run. We're not going to run. So the question is, do you trust us enough to stay?" The answer should have been complicated. Should have required analysis and weighing of risks. But when he looked at her injured, because she'd stood close to him, because she'd chosen proximity over safety, the answer was simple. "Yes." "Good. Then we'll figure out the rest as we go." Later, after visiting hours ended and medical staff insisted on sleep, Mob returned to his room. His actual room in the dormitory, not a temporary space. Someone had left food on the desk. A note from Deku. "Missed you at dinner. Saved you some." He ate mechanically. Exhaustion made everything distant. But it was honest exhaustion now. Earned through coming back rather than running away. His phone buzzed. Messages from various classmates. From Ida, "Rest adequately. Tomorrow requires attendance at morning briefing." From Todoroki, "You did well today." From Bakugo, "Next time you lose it, give us warning first." From Uraraka, "Sleep well. See you tomorrow." Simple messages, mundane even. But they represented something that had been missing before continuity. Tomorrow existed. He would be there for it. They expected him to be. He lay down. For once, sleep came easily. Across campus in administrative offices, Nezu filed reports that would never see public distribution. The incident had been contained, explained as structural failure and coordinated villain attack. The boy's role would remain internal knowledge. "We're protecting him by hiding what he did," Aizawa observed. "We're protecting everyone by not creating panic," Nezu corrected. Society isn't ready to process what happened today. Perhaps they never will be. But that's acceptable. Our responsibility is to the students in our care, Mob included. And if it happens again, then we handle it again. Adaptation is our specialty. They worked late into the night, drafting protocols, establishing support structures, building framework for a student who didn't fit existing categories, not because they had to, because they'd chosen to. Outside, the city continued its recovery. Buildings were repaired. People returned to routines. The world moved forward, because that's what worlds did. And in a dormitory room at UA, a boy slept without nightmares. Held in place not by power or regulation, but by the simple certainty that tomorrow people would still be there. They hadn't solved the problem. They'd chosen to live with it, and sometimes that was enough. Okay, so honestly, this ending is fucking wild. I think the craziest part is that Mob didn't even mean to go God mode. Like his friend gets hurt and he just pauses reality. Physics straight up says, nope, and clocks out. At that point, this isn't a superhero show anymore. It's a horror movie where the universe forgot how to move. I honestly can't get over Makia. This dude is a walking disaster, and he gets frozen mid-step like a busted action figure. I think that really shows that muscles don't mean shit when the kid you're facing can mess with the rules of existence like it's a settings menu. And well, I gotta respect Deku here. Everyone else is stuck scared or glitching, and this man just walks through the void like, okay guys, I'll handle it. I bet he didn't even have a plan, he just knew Mob needed someone to talk to him. That is the most Deku thing ever, and somehow it works. Honestly, Lady Nagant dipping out is the smartest move in the whole chapter. She sees her gun melting, sees reality breaking, and she's like, yeah, fuck this. I'm out. I think she realized real fast she was not built for this level of bullshit. And bro, all for one watching all this and basically rage quitting is so funny. I bet he told himself he never wanted Mob anyway, just to save face. That is peak sore loser energy right there. The ending, though, is kinda sweet. Aizawa basically tells Mob he's staying and that they're keeping him no discussion. It's aggressive, but in a caring way. Like, okay, you're ours now, deal with it. I honestly think that's the real win here. Not power, not fighting, but friends who will walk through broken gravity just to tell you dinner's ready.